More than 3,000 town hall fat cats pocketed six-figure salaries last year, despite taxes soaring for workers and local services being squeezed. That's the highest number of six-figure earners at local authority level since 2015 and the second highest on record. Research shows at least 175 local authority bureaucrats earned pay packets of more than £200,000, while over 800 took home more than 150,000 quid as their annual salary. To put that into perspective, our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, takes home £165,000 for running the whole of the UK. Topping the Fat Cat leaderboard was Hampshire Council's Felicity Rowe, who got more than 650 grand, including pension and loss of office compensation, when she left after a restructure. Meanwhile, it's Westminster Council that holds the highest number of staff members on six-figure salaries, with 60 workers on the payroll earning over £100,000. What is strange about this is that 59 of these local authorities didn't even submit any of their paperwork, their records. But I think it's bizarre that anyone working in local authority earns more than the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, I've long thought the Prime Minister should be paid a whole lot more. I think that salary is frankly derisory. It doesn't, of course, reflect his whole package because he will also get his salary as an MP, and so it adds up to a bit more. But honestly, he's running the country.
Yeah.
And whatever you might think about the guy, it's not exactly an easy job, and it has extremely long hours, and it may have some quite good perks, and after you leave, you generally have an extremely high earning power. But it just seems to sort of diminish our country as a whole, that we pay our Prime Minister such a relative pittance. And in terms of what the council bosses are earning, I really, really struggle to find a case for any local authority boss, particularly at this time, but frankly ever, earning 600,000. I know this includes pensions and all the rest, but these are obscene figures. You know, councils keep moaning about how they can't run basic services.
I think there's a terrible deficit of democracy in our councils, which has led to this culture, because if you've ever had to tackle a council, you speak to your councillor who's elected all the time and is really chasing your vote, who then speaks to one of these fat cats or people who are permanently in office, and they get biffed, they get bashed away. And in America, for example, you vote either Democrat or Republican with the old traditional lever, right down to the dog catcher. If we had more democracy in this country, we would have less £600,000 packages at council level.
Well, clearly it's not based on performance. That's my biggest issue. It's not performance-based, because most of the councils in this country are either facing bankruptcy or on the brink of bankruptcy. Yeah. So it's clearly not tied to any sort of actual performance, and that's what bothers me the most. Most people wouldn't even think about how much council bosses are paid. If they thought their council provided good services, that council taxes weren't obscene, I don't even agree with them. And you know, they actually felt like they were good value for money, but that's clearly not the case. On the issue of politicians, the salary politicians earn, it really winds me up. I don't even like getting to that discussion, because every time people say, oh, it's not about the money, it should be about duty and service of the country, and yet they complain when lobbyists have as much power as they do of our politicians. There's a reason why the Singaporeans pay their Prime Minister and other politicians in the millions of dollars. It works.
It does, and I've made myself really unpopular in the past by saying that I think politicians, you know, backbench MPs, all of them should be paid a lot more, because, you know, cases like the expenses scandal, you know, lobbying scandal, cash for questions, all those things. You think, I'm not saying if you paid them more, they wouldn't have their finger in the till, but you could expect a bit more of them. You could demand a bit more of them, and you might end up with a better calibre. Because the other thing about obviously being a politician, it's a high risk job.
Exactly.
You don't go into that job knowing that's a job for life, that you're going to stay at that comfortable salary until you retire age 65 or whatever. You can be turfed out at any moment. So I do think that if we're going to ask the tip-top people not to go into banking and not to go into academia, whatever it might be, but come and run the country, they should be rewarded properly. And I sort of agree with you about the American system of, you know, voting for a mayor and voting for a head of police, and we've tried that, you know, with various.
People aren't that bothered.
And I think that's the problem.